Puerto Rico's governor will make a televised speech on Sunday ahead of an expected default on $422 million of debt due on Monday, as the U.S. territory's economic crisis enters its most dire stretch yet. The Government Development Bank, Puerto Rico's primary fiscal agent, is expected to skip at least the principal portion of its payment to hedge funds, credit unions and other bondholders. Still, an 11th-hour debt restructuring deal is possible. On Friday, GDB reached a deal with some credit unions to extend maturities on $33 million of debt, but chances of a deal to avoid a broader default were looking bleak over the weekend, with one source close to the talks telling Reuters that a restructuring was unlikely to happen. Governor Alejandro Garcia Padilla is scheduled to address Puerto Rico's 3.5 million people at 5 p.m. EST, 2100 GMT. Puerto Rico, a tropical paradise in economic purgatory, faces a $70 billion debt bill it knows it cannot pay, a staggering 45% poverty rate and a shrinking population as its U.S. citizens flee to the mainland. Though island agencies have defaulted in the past, they have been small and isolated. A default by GDB, which acts as the government's main depository and source of liquidity, could reverberate through the local economy. Agencies being able to access money to cover costs on a week-to-week basis is the only thing keeping Puerto Rico's doors open, said Height Securities analyst Daniel Hansen. A missed payment at GDB could mean the beginning of the end to how the bank conducts operations. It could be wound down by a receiver and its deposits shifted to a new entity, and Garcia Padilla could impose a debt moratorium letting GDB skip the payment without facing legal ramifications from creditors. The legality of these measures would almost certainly be challenged by GDB's creditors, spawning costly lawsuits and perpetuating economic uncertainty on the island. One of our operating assumptions is that protracted or chaotic litigation will reduce aggregate recoveries, Moody's Investors Service Senior Credit Officer Ted Hampton said. GDB has held talks with groups holding some of its $4 billion in bonds to try to restructure the debt consensually. Some creditors who are frustrated with Garcia Padilla's administration, which has not issued audited financial statements since fiscal year 2013, say government reforms could allow the island to pay its debts without hurting its people. Garcia Padilla insists the U.S. territory needs relief from debt payments. A default would ratchet up pressure on the U.S. Congress to find a legislative solution for Puerto Rico, which enters a key stretch in its fiscal saga, owing another $1.9 billion of debt on July 1. Including about $777 million in general obligation debt backed by its constitution. U.S. House Speaker Paul Ryan initially called for a plan by March 31. However, draft legislation from the House Natural Resources Committee, which would put Puerto Rico's finances under federal oversight and allow it to restructure debt through a bankruptcy-like process, has faced opposition from liberal and conservative wings of both parties. Congress is in recess until the week of May 9. Credit rating agencies have issued multiple warnings and have downgraded Puerto Rico deep into junk territory.